Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Blue Dragon 5 here.
And this is Eli from Little Blue Productions.
And tonight we're gathered here to celebrate the 20th anniversary of robots. That's right.
Yes. Which we just so happened to, it's just so happens like it's this day. It's 20th anniversary.
This day, 20 long years ago, robots came out. It was born. It was assembled for the first time.
Yes.
And we saw it, and we enjoyed it. And we'd like to reflect on it. So, Eli, overall, what do you have to say about robots?
Well, robots. I gotta say, it's a really good blue sky animated film, and this being their second after Ice Age. Ice Age is what launched them and such, and we'd have to wait like a couple years until they would do their next animated film. And over time, and as I've gotten older, I've come to really love and appreciate robots more than I used to, and I think it's got to be one of my top favorite blue sky films. I do remember. I have a little bit of memory when this came out. I mean, I do remember, like, I think, I saw some promos and such on TV. I know that, didn't get to experience this in theaters, but I also remember seeing the merchandise, and I kid you not when I say this, at my at my local Chuck E. Cheese, I remember Chuck E. Cheese. They showed like a clip or something of robots. The old days of Chuck E. Cheese when they had those TVs. They showed a clip of robots, and and I remember. I think the first time I did watch it was back when Blockbuster was still around, and we rented robots. Pretty sure, but yeah, and having like seen it years later, rewatching it at times, again, I've come to really appreciate and love robots more, and a very underrated gem, I should say, from Blue Sky. And someone once said that they feel that robots is Blue Sky's A Bug's Life. If you think about that, just there's nothing like this animated film about robots, and probably never will be. How this one's done specifically, just the population, and I don't know what the term is, but where we have a world where it's not humans, it's robots, and the same thing for, like, say, other animated films where the population of the world is animals and such. But just overall, robots, an underrated Blue Sky animated film gem without a doubt.
All right. Yeah, so I got a real soft spot for robots for mushy reasons. I'll get into as we get into the discussion. But it's for a lot of other reasons too. I love. I really have a soft spot for robots. I've always been a gadget nut, thanks to Batman. So I do enjoy a lot of, like, the machinery and the kind of the gadgetry that's kind of involved in the design, the world building, and all that. And just that kind of, also the fact I'm an animation geek from the get go. So it's very much kind of, I think it's very much kind of made to be appreciated, not just by the kiddies, but by the kind of the animation guys. The story, it's earnest. It's got these. It's got these very sincere moments that genuinely move me, which I'm gonna be glowing about later. I think it's a lovely throwback to being in kind of a post Pixar world, which is kind of where Blue Sky was very much kind of operating. Basically, it was like in the expanding Wild West of computer animation. And look, it's no Toy Story or Shrek or what equivalent have you around that kind of point in time. But I want to be very clear with robots. Not every animated. Sorry, here's the thing: not every animated film needs to be, the next Toy Story, the next Shrek. Sometimes you can just have something to enjoy and just appreciate and kind of revel in the art form. That's kind of what this movie is. It's a simple film. It's a lot of fun, and I gotta admit, still gives me the feels and gives me some laughs, and I rather enjoy it.
Yeah. Yep. Me too.
All right, so I'm gonna a little reflection here on the background, like what the heck gets us robots in the first place. Let me lay out the blueprints for robots here. So,
Ah.
Chris Wedge. Chris Wedge was he was a computer graphics guy way back in the day. He worked on Tron, which of course Tron,
Mhm.
ironically, was the lightning rod for Toy Story in the first place. And
And he did a few. I don't mean to cut you off. He did a few animated shorts in the '80s. They're on YouTube, actually.
yeah.
Hmm.
Anyway, yeah. So Toy Story when it came out, it really blew him away. There's this wonderful story Chris Wedge kind of has said in the past, where basically he saw Toy Story for the first time. I think it was probably in New York, and he was so kind of jazzed out of his mind by what the medium had was able to accomplish there. He was like running all the way to Grand Central Station, inspired, and that kind of led him to working on Titan AE, and then ultimately forming Blue Sky, which then of course brings us Ice Age in 2002.
Yep.
And it puts him on the map, and then of course leads to the question: the second product syndrome, a Bug's Life, like you mentioned,
Yep.
which brings about like, okay, what the heck do we do next? So Chris Wedge, he had tried adapting one of Bill Joyce's books. Now, Bill Joyce is a very talented artist and children's book author who then
Mm.
over the years has adapted a lot of his works and just kind of done original projects. The point being, the man has a good eye for design. And fun fact, Bill Joyce, not a lot of people know this, I think, he was one of the designers on Toy Story. He did a lot of the first passes on things that were then kind of like refined.
Mm.
Like Buzz Light, if you think back, if you remember the test footage of Buzz and Woody from Toy Story, back when Woody was like the big wooden ventriloquist dummy, and Buzz was Tempest from Morph, the little red and white, small version of the space toy.
That's right.
That little small version of Buzz Lightyear, there was a lot of Bill Joyce influence on that version of Buzz, which then kind of got refined ultimately to kind of like what is the very '90s kind of toy equivalent? Like how do we kind of '90s this up essentially?
Yeah.
Anyway, so point Bill Joyce, he had this Christmas book out called Santa Calls, and essentially that's what they were looking into developing. So he and Chris Wedge were kind of going back and forth in developing the movie, and ultimately it fell through. But they realized they really liked working together, so they figured like, let's just do something ground up. Let's just they worked on this original concept together, and I think ultimately it was just like robots are cool. Let's do that, and they just basically developed the
Yeah.
visuals, and the story kind of fell into place soon after that. And it was kind of basically in development roughly since 2000, while probably Ice Age is like being completed. Ice Age coming out and doing well really helps. Like okay, let's definitely get robots on its feet.
Yep.
So let's see. So basically, the world building is a lot of fun. They went to the Brooklyn Museum of Art, and they kind of realized, oh man, historically robots have had a very kind of singular look. We don't really have a lot to work with here. So let's just kind of break down like how machinery has advanced, and just kind of look at where we can kind of anthropomorphize certain things and kind of build a world from there. And a lot of the characters and the side characters fell into place like that. Rodney, on the other hand, your lead character, being very important, to he was hard to nail down, and they ended up kind of combining a lot of really odd and unusual elements. Like you had, like they had this old blue motor from I think Chris Wedge's father's grandfather's like motorboat, and also like a VW bus, and they kind of that's where you get like the teal and white kind of aesthetic for Rodney. Anyway, so yeah, and also, I mean, the biggest challenge of the movie, from what I understand, seemed to be like getting the likability and kind of an organicness into the design of the robots. Because at this point, Bill Joyce he's doing a roly poly oly. I don't know if you remember that one.
Oh, Dragon, I Roly Poly Oly was one of my jams of Playhouse Disney, and actually, that was one of my like that's how I first. I mean, that was one of my early introductions. Like when I first knew about William Joyce, and that was one of his creations. So
Oh yeah. So it's really interesting, and if you kind of look at the roly poly oly design, especially of Oly himself,
hmm
you can kind of see a lot of that in some of the earliest characters that kind of found their ways into different parts of the movies. And that brings me to talking about Jack Hammer. Now you're probably, well, who the heck is Jack Hammer? So Jack Hammer is the guy who runs he runs the hardware store. in Robots. Like the repair shop in Robots. Now,
Right.
originally, what they did a test. They did a short film that proved as like a proof of concept. It was the Jack Hammer character model, who again kind of the more roundish kind of robot design, like a roly poly oly. And it was him in the role of a director, with him in the role of a director with a starlet, who's kind of in the shape of like a vacuum cleaner and stuff. And the point being, it was the two of them, kind of interacting with each other. And this was like a short. You can find it on the DVD as well if anyone's curious. And that basically was kind of got him off to the race. Like, okay, we have something here, and just show you like how some of the early designs ended up kind of like for example, they massaged out like, okay, our female starlet here definitely we got to make our female characters look better. Like we need a Cappy here. Give us some Cappy.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So the big thing I want to say about Roads before we get into it is they really had this movie is a tight 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a tight 90 minutes, and to really get it down to that, they trimmed out a lot of. They trimmed the movie down to the bare essentials, which led to a lot of cuts in the story department, which I think do kind of show. And we'll get there. It was an early IMAX film. We had the wonderful John Powell doing the score, as well as the Blue Man Group.
Oh, really?
You remember the Blue Man Group?
I didn't know the Blue Man Group was involved in Robots.
Well, yeah, I mean, I want to say in the general sound design, but specifically the ending where we have the robots kind of adding their own sound to the musical score. That's Blue Man Group for you.
Ah, okay, yeah. Well, there you go. That's perfect right there.
So that's definitely them. I don't know if they did any additional consultancy on the Foley, but that ending was definitely them.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and yes, the movie was received pretty well. Not the heights of Pixar DreamWorks, but received pretty well, and I want to say did pretty well on home video. But that's about it. One last thing, Chris Melodrani, who went on to do Despicable Me and the Minions, and basically, Illumination. This was an early film for him as well, kind of spinning off of Blue Sky. So there you go.
Nice.
Okay, let's start breaking it down.
Yes, let's do so.
So I guess.
No, go ahead.
Well, I guess the place we might want to start, because setting the tone for our conversation, I feel the movie, like most good movies, we need to set a tone with the opening, and we have the literal building of our protagonist.
Yep. I'm gonna be a father.
You missed the delivery, but making the baby's the fun part.
Yeah.
So this sets the tone, and the movie and the self-admittedly both films. The film is it's a lot of gag-based humor, which I think a lot of people, unfortunately, I feel a lot of people watching Robots today would roll their eyes at, and I get it. And that's not to say there isn't a lot of, it's like the rule of comedy. Not everyone's going to be a knee slapper. Not everyone's going to be, like a home run.
Yeah, I've seen a few reactions to this movie on YouTube where, they're having a good time and they get some good laughs, especially the opening to Robots.
Yeah. So I think we set the tone with we have some gag-based humor, we have fun design work, but also it's kind of a three-pronged thing. There's gags, there's design, and then there's pathos. And the pathos of the Copper Bottoms, I feel, is very central to why the movie works, and at least why the movie has something that I think any other movie you could have written off, could have been like a kind of like, oh, we're gonna do a CG computer animated film. Like this is what separates it from the pack. And I want to say, in the grand scheme of the films that Blue Sky's put out, I mean, puts it above definitely all the Ice Age sequels. And that thing, Blue Sky isn't really known for doing a lot. Because Blue Sky, when you boil it down, you have a lot of Ice Age, you have Robots, Epic, and importantly, the Peanuts movie. Those are basically the big four.
Yeah, and also a Horton Hears the Who, and
well, right, no, you're right. Yeah, and Horton Hears the Who, which is good. I didn't mean to leave that off there, but yes, Horton Hears the Who.
And all the others that they did that don't want to leave off as well.
Certainly. Point being, this, however, I always felt this movie hit the pathos so well, and intentionally or not, it feels like Chris Wedge put a little bit of himself in this movie. I think like all filmmakers do, intentionally or not. For example, Rivet Town is based on his hometown of Watertown, New York. And, as I mentioned with Toy Story, Grand Central Station, which we kind of see very much homaged in this film rather lovingly, I like to think. So, yeah, I mean, I think it kind of goes a long way, even unconsciously. I think it really goes to making the world feel lived in, and just kind of like it has that Bedford Falls kind of like kind of like small hometown that the big fish in a small pond kind of vibe.
Yes.
Okay, real quick, we have some comments I'm going to read out here from our trusty old Code Geass anime fan. Okay, I think that the third and fourth Ice Age films are pretty good. Let's see. It says I have some nostalgia for robots. It's a decent animated film. Robin Williams was always really good, and yes, he was. Robin Williams is quite a treat, and there's no accident that he is in our image.
Yep.
Yep. Also, I just really do love this image, just in terms of like a retrospective. Like, oh, remember the good times.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a pretty good. That's a pretty good, really good choice of a thumbnail that Jacob chose for this. It's a good one.
Yeah. Okay, this is where I'm going to get all mushy, by the way. So just prepare the inside out tissues. I'm just going to tell you that now. All right.
Standing
So
by.
I think the core of this movie, I think it's a genuinely, even without working my own stuff here, I think there's a moving father son story that grounds our silly kids movie fare.
Yes.
Aside from like, man, robots are cool, and yes, they are cool, son. But let me tell you this: beyond robots being cool, there's something really, really sweet and sincere about this movie here, and I feel the best decision this film made, even more than getting Rob Williams in this film,
Yep.
was casting Stan.
Um, is it me or did
How do you how do you feel about Stanley?
I don't know if Dragon. I don't know because on my end, or if it happened on the stream as well, you kind of cut off. I didn't hear.
No, that was intentionally. Like, how do you feel about Stanley Tucci?
Okay. Yeah, man, I keep forgetting this. I don't know why. I guess I've forgotten. I guess I kept forgetting at times that Stanley Tucci's in this movie. Yeah, Stanley Tucci. You know, well, I mean, what can you say about Stanley Tucci? I mean, he's never a disappointment, and I think that what he brings to the voice role of Herb is really good, and especially because you know how he and of course we have to acknowledge Ewan McGregor who voices Rodney. The chemistry that each of them have in this movie, in this animated film about robots and the whole father and son thing. I think it's really good, and I think that because what Stanley Tucci brought to Herb and how much of a caring father he is, and and with his relationship with his son, just yeah, it's really good. Like Stanley Tucci is the man, and also to you and Tiki, your proposed actor to portray Katzenberg. Um, yeah, but yeah, just overall Stanley Tucci. I mean, again, I swear because I've forgotten that he was in this movie and voicing the father. I'm sorry, but it's true. It's one of those things, for people. But yeah, I mean, there are great moments that Herb has with Tucci's voice performance here and there, and again with the moments between father and son. It's great. It really is. Yeah.
Yeah, so here's the thing. So I think again, the big stand for me with this film is Herb Copperbottom. We did like way back, we did like an animated father's list, and Herb Copperbottom absolutely is on my list. I forget how high I put him on the list, but I think he's like the one of the most underrated dads in animation. I melt for him because one, I love Tucci, and I love the performance. It's very thoughtful, it's soft spoken, it's very genuine, it's very loving, and again, where I get mushy is that I think deep down, I've always had. I've seen a lot of parallels to my father in Herb Copperbottom. Like basically, this is going to sound weird. I've always kind of had these. If my father were an amalgam of kind of characters, or I guess characters in quotes, I mean, it's kind of like the best way I could kind of put him in a blender would be. My father, he looks like Stanley, It's not a joke. He actually Stanley.
Okay.
Um, he looks a lot like Stanley. He's basically in personality. It's kind of like Goofy from a Goofy movie mixed with Hugh Neutron from Jimmy Neutron. And the heart is Herb Copperbottom. I think kind of the soul of my father is very much kind of embodied in Herb Copperbottom. I know it's when I'm getting all mushy and stuff, but it just kind of like I've always have a special place for Herb Copperbottom, and I think Tucci's
Hmm.
really brought that performance alive, and it always stuck with me. I think years later, I kind of realized, oh my god, maybe that's why I really like Herb Copperbottom. I don't know.
Hmm. That's
You know,
decent.
he's a good bot. You know, he loves his family. He sacrificed his dreams in life without complaint, and he's just this unappreciated dishwasher. And I love just this moment of the, I love the whole the Wonderful World of Walt Disney inspired, introduction of Big World, which is great. And the fact, like, it's father and son kind of connecting, or let's watch Big World on the TV, and kind of our 50s kind of like influence, Bill Joyce designed world.
And let's not forget to mention Big Wells being voiced by the one and only Mel Brooks.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw this out there too. You know what? Mel Brooks never gets enough credit for this. Not counting his own movies, I would say this movie, especially in animation, I'm not throwing shade to Hotel Transylvania, but just saying in general, I think Mel Brooks doing some actual acting here.
Yeah, I would think so too.
I think there's more of a performance because a lot of the time he can rest on his laurels. It's like the cool factor of, oh man, we love Mel Brooks. There he is. This is like, it's Mel
Yeah.
Brooks, but he's got some range here.
And
A
again,
little
no
bit.
hard and again, no hard feelings to his character of Lade in Hotel Transylvania. He's good in
Yeah.
that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree because come on, Mel Brooks be Mel Brooks, and yeah, I mean, the more I think of it now, because this is his finest in the world of animation, and the voice performance he gives to this Walt Disney robot wannabe, I guess you could say. Yeah, just and again, I would agree with you, Dragon. Like again, this being his finest, and who'd have thought? Who'd have thought that Blue Sky's robots would be blue where Mel Brooks is at his finest with the voice acting he delivers to the character. Um, and also, yeah, and also Kogias said this about Stanley Tucci. Stanley Tucci's done lots of really good voice work. If you hadn't heard the English dub of The Wind Rises,
Mm-hmm.
you should know that delivered a pretty amazing performance for it. I don't think I have not seen The Wind Rises.
I highly recommend it. I really like The Wind Rises.
Is that a Miyazaki thing?
Yes, it is.
See, I had a feeling. I had a feeling. Yeah.
All right. So let me see. Where was it? Oh, yeah. Point being, so we have like Big Weld's introduction and the Wonderbot. Here's the thing. I love that the Wonderbot. I think all of our construction around the father and son story. I think is like it's pitch perfect. Like the Wonderbot is designed to help his poor father. I love all this. It's one of my favorite scenes in the whole film. Like kind of like top three scenes, I guess, or something. It's one of my favorite scenes is the the dishwashing montage where the Wonderbot's in action. The score is really nice. We have like the Shine song, which basically complements the theme of like the whole movie is kind of distilled down to this really nice happy moment where it's like you can the motto of you can shine no matter what you're made of and see a need, fill a need. It's very much embodied. Like everything in the story just kind of coalesce in that moment, and then of course it all comes crashing down with the cynicism of just kind of cold hard cash, aka Mr. Gunk, the walking cash register.
Yeah.
Everything, all the dreams get shattered there. It literally like the dishes that Wonderbot is like is accidentally destroying.
Because of him shouting and such, he's doing loud.
Exactly.
That's on him.
Exactly. So we have the goodbye at the train station. Which Herb. I love that Herb believes in Rodney. He we have this amidst this we have this really fun joke at the top of the scene. The whole this is like how did you find me? A mother knows these things. What do you mean? The knows these things? It's mother's instinct. He left us a note saying he'd be at the train station. I don't know. I thought it was kind of cute. But again, so I love that we can infuse a little bit of comedy and then go to the pathos of it. We get the Herb Copperbottom backstory, which I oddly a little like Jim Carrey's father. I'm just throwing that in there. It's a little kind of some parallels there. Just Percy Carey. He was in the music. and then he kind of had to go into janitorial work, and it was kind of a shame.
Hmm.
Anyway, but yeah, so Herb just having this. So Herb he had this dream that he basically had to shelve. Basically his own father basically said you should get a practical job, which I think every father or son or any kind of parent child at some point have had that conversation where it's like it's a fear and kind of a smashing of dreams that comes out of love and just genuine concern for your child's future. It's kind of like like the parent's reflection of, am I a good parent in steering my kid in the direction where he's going to be able to take care of himself, kind of a thing.
Yep.
And Herb believing in his son and seeing the creative spark and genuinely, kind of thinking, he could go places. He invests in that dream. He gives him the ticket to Robot City, and it's a beautiful little goodbye there. And again, we use Herb very sparingly in the movie, and we use him very effectively.
Oh yes.
It's roughly, again, the movie's very much built around a really tight 3 act structure, and we use Herb at pretty much just the right moments within those 3 acts, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're probably thinking he's just going to talk about Herb Cottonbottom this whole time. Well, he's out of the story for the time being, so let's go to the Robot City, aka the Grand Central Station set piece. What do you think of this?
Oh, I mean, yeah, it's pretty good and funny. With what happens right there, and by the way, the Grand Central Station, Dragon, did you ever realize? Did you ever notice that one Easter egg there? There is a robot that's basically a robot version of Sid the Sloth.
I did. That's great.
Yeah, that's nice.
I'm going to give you an insider Easter egg. Okay.
Okay, shoot.
And maybe insider is a little bit pretentious. I'm just going to give you an Easter egg that I don't think a lot of people have pointed out.
Yes.
So in the montage where we have all the robot inventors, the prospective inventors at Big Welds, the green robot with the jetpack,
Mm-hmm.
that was originally Rodney. That was one of his designs before they settled on kind of like the teal.
Oh, okay.
So if you look at him, you'll notice he does look. Man, that could be Rodney's understudy. Well, before the top part of his body blows off.
It was nice to see that they incorporated an original design of Rodney in the film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I want to say I feel like I'm pretty sure, but I can't remember. I'm pretty sure that might have happened in other animated films where maybe an original design of a main character could kind of make its way in the film, but it depends. So, but that's nice that, and I never knew that. I never knew that until now. That yeah, because an original design for Rodney still made it into the film as its own character, even though just didn't have that much of a big role. So,
oh, it's a cameo.
oh well, of course, a cameo of Rodney's original design.
Yeah.
The
Okay,
original.
Eli, hit him with Fender.
Okay, all right. You put me in the spot for Fender. Yeah.
Yep. Tell him all about your stuff with Fender. Tell him about Fender.
Okay. I did. Yeah, because I showed this before we started. I showed because I actually just fun fact. Actually got my hands on a Fender plush. But yeah, Fender. Well, what can you say? Because first off, Robin Williams. I think Robin Williams. Like say what you will, because I think what Robin Williams brings to the voice performance of Fender is really good. And hey, Robin Williams is no stranger to doing like movies that have to do with robots. I mean, like one of the first times he did do something as a robot was in the defunct Disney World attraction Tomorrowland Timekeeper. And then for feature films, well, he did Bicentennial Man. And then fast forward, well, he would do a full animated film of robots, and of course, yeah, voicing Fender. Yeah, and Fender's design and look is pretty cool, and just it's the perfect opportunity, like even in an animated film, and in this case, an animated film of robots where Robin Williams just let him have it, because he's voicing a robot, and yeah, certain moments that Fender has, like I can think of best example where his when his two arms fall apart, they're wrestling, and kind of like I think they're speaking Spanish. It's pretty funny, arm wrestling kind of, and I think like from Doug Walker and a few others, how they feel towards Robin Williams' voice performance as Fender. Well, it's their opinion, and I understand it. To me, Robin Williams is doing his best, at voicing Fender, and because I mentioned Doug Walker, Dragon, I don't know about you because, I don't know. Again, it's Doug's opinion where, like, I think yeah he compared Robin Williams' voice performance as Fender. It's like a mixture of Genie and his performance in Fisher King, but still, I mean, I don't know. It's just Robin Williams doing his finest at voicing Fender, but yeah.
Well, let me tell you. Let me tell you. So when Fender shows up, I really love him. This is more of kind of an insight revisiting the movie years later.
Hmm.
It's not to say it's been forever since I've seen this, but it's probably been a little while. At least
Yeah, me
looking
too.
over with a fine tooth comb. When he shows up, I kind of forgot about this. Oh my god, it's Robin Williams doing a Groucho, which is hilarious. He's doing the Marx Brothers when he shows up. So that when he
Mm.
shows up, the whole gag about taking all basically you show up at the essentially Grand Central Station, you have like a new pigeon who just kind of flows in out of town, and it's like, hey, taking all these pictures and like charging through the nose for like kind of a carnival barker of sorts. It's very much like like Groucho Marx or like Chico Marx. Like it's just like just going there and saying like well you don't want any pictures. Well, there's no film in the camera. That's very much Groucho. It's just I'm not doing any justice, but trust me, it's kind of what he's doing there, and it's a lot of fun.
Yep.
I just like that our introduction to Fender is memorable in that we have like kind of like some fun shticky kind of stuff there, but then we also have him as part of a really great set piece, which does in a movie where we have a very economic runtime, for better or for worse, making the moments count in which so we're going to pair Rodney and Fender up for the rest of this movie. He should be in the big like like the oh my god wow kind of like this is Robot City, the Crosstown Express sequences, putting him in there and having some kind of like, oh, the stuff that falls off me, it's embarrassing, stuff like that. It helps you kind of have like an attachment to this Fender character.
Yeah. Yeah, and even like the whole thing, like his introduction and taking pictures, that'll be $50.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's, I mean, that's how it is. Like, say in New York,
Oh
like
yeah.
if you know, you know.
So there was a lot of there. By the way, there were a lot of gags. They had a lot of fun with Grand Central Station because they had like a whole bunch of like, like yeah, like we have all the classic New York gags. That, don't buy us, we're fake, with all the watches, and like I got screwed. The guy with the the handout sign.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and how
That kind of stuff.
yes, and also
Anyway,
how the further we go into Robot City, and you can really tell like how so creative that Blue Sky Animation was when it came to designing Robot City, and most notably the sequence where like the next time that it doesn't take that long for Rodney to once again run into Fender in that ball, that sequence. Which, by the way, that's the scene. That scene where Rodney and Fender, they're in that ball and such. Hey, are you following me, etc. That's, like I said earlier. That's the scene that my local Chuck E. Cheese played. So that I remember so well. And yeah, I mean that sequence right there, because when Rodney runs into Fender again, he's sleeping and such, and that I think that's a pretty memorable scene where they're rolling on a ball and
well, yeah, that's the Crosstown Express scene, Eli.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah, that's right. Thank you for reminding me the name of that.
well, yeah, no, it's great, and the fact that again it sets up the dynamic where okay, Rodney is kind of new that he's the optimist. The whole so again in terms of the movie, like a big influence on was Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. So it's kind of like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington with kind of like a fun kind of a guide of sorts, and that's very much Fender here. Basically, it's like oh yeah, they used to have this giant hammer, and the hammer gag's still just priceless.
Yes. Now they put it back.
Just the whole Rube Goldberg in kind of like way of transit or like the penny thing down at the mall. It's just a lot of like fun influences for just how awesome this transport system is.
Yep. And then when Fender gets hit by the hammer and he goes flying, that was funny. Hey, that's
Yeah.
him.
All right, let's see. I guess so. I guess we should talk about. I guess. Well, do you want to talk about Tim or Ratchet?
No, either one's fine, whichever which to start with.
Okay. So we have Tim at the gate now. Chris Wedge, he loved little Timmy here. He loved this character. Of course, we have the wonderful the wonderful acclaimed Paul Giamatti as Tim the Guard, which is just really priceless. I love the idea that I think Chris Wedge really loved the idea that we have this very almost Mister Rogers kind of Kingdom of Make Believe esque puppet, at the gate. Like kind of puppet
Yeah.
looking, you can animate like a hand puppet, kind of a robot. There's like the gatekeeper who's like all sunshine and rainbows and optimism in the in the TV show. But it's like basically the whole idea is like we got to crush Rodney's optimism early when he gets to Robot City and show him, okay, the times have changed from the show. So again, with the whole Mr. Smith Goes to Washington kind of parallels here, where it's like, okay, he's facing this little evil, cynical, little gatekeeper to all his hopes and dreams are controlled by that little demon guy.
Yeah.
And he's just Giamatti is just playing it just so hilariously. It just like he's like, oh, I'm just funning with you. No, you really think I'm gonna let you in, but I'm not. Right.
It's not a friendly puppet as Rodney expected.
So it's setting the tone very well for Robot City, what Rodney's up against.
Yep.
And also, again, he's a good warm up to Ratchet in a sense. Now, mind you, nowhere near as Ratchet. As much as I love Ratchet, Timmy's hysterical. Timmy's like very delightful in terms of entertainment factor. But I do love me some Ratchet. Ratchet is. Here's the thing. Again, they cut out a lot of our villain stuff in this movie. I'm not necessarily. Here's the thing. Cappy, she's not a villain, but I'm saying in conjunction with the villains. Cappy suffered the most from the edits, and any way you slice it, you can tell that. Cappy completely gutted her character in the edit. Ratchet, we don't necessarily need his backstory. I like there's an inkling of everything we need to say about Ratchet there, and basically that was like kind of what Wedge and the company kind of ultimately kind of landed on. Said, villains just make them evil, make them fun to watch. We don't really need to know anything about them, and I think ultimately they were kind of right. Ratchet is the evil of big business in a creative field of design.
Oh yes.
By the way, I think might be a subtle nod to Disney in the '80s. I'm convinced.
Like maybe like what, Michael Eisner or something.
Well, I'm saying like in that era before the Disney Renaissance, the early '80s Disney, where it was like the era that Brad Bird quit in. Like the idea of like the manufactured animation era. Like that early '80s kind of period.
Yes, and back when we still had Ron Miller running.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Kind of that Ron Miller era, but nothing against right. I like Ron Miller. God help me, I don't like I don't like the Pooh and the Man because he was Walt's son-in-law, but he was a businessman. He wasn't creative.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that Ron wasn't he wasn't able to do like exactly like what his late father-in-law did, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I feel for him, but I think more of it was Ron was like in a position. I love my family and my father-in-law, and I don't want to. I want to do right by him, but I have no idea what I'm doing.
Exactly. Yeah, that about makes sense.
Anyway, so Ratchet is voiced by someone I love, Greg Kinnear. So that's yet another kind of feather in this movie's cap for me. I love me some Greg Kinnear. Whether you want to cite Little Miss Sunshine or I love him in the show Rake. No one ever talks about Rake, but I like him in that. And anyway, point being, Greg Kinnear shows up, and this I think was also like an early introduction to the man for me, and I really loved him in this.
Yeah, that was one of my introductions to. I think Robots has really been the only thing I've seen him in. I don't know, because I mean I'm familiar with some other films that he's done. Like I know he was in Anchorman and.
Well, Anchorman 2.
Yeah, Anchorman 2. Thank you. Yeah, and a couple of shows that he's done. Like because he was in an episode of Jordan Peele's The Twilight Zone, and he had been in House of Cards.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, mainly I mainly just know him for Robots. That's about it.
Yeah, so I love Ratchet again. He's a character. Here's the thing: Ratchet being surface level, I don't think is a problem because the whole point of his character is being surface level. In the sense he's all about upgrades. He's all about. So again, this character distilled down. Now, mind you, we could have gotten more mileage out of this had we developed, and I recognize that. But just working with what we have, I do like that you could look in and kind of read into it that this guy is existing as a character as he is. He is a antithesis to who Rodney is from what we know in the film. So Rodney's done all the legwork here, but you can just kind of see and compare and contrast it. Okay, Ratchet's a businessman. He's all about the exterior. Again, we've seen that Rodney was a guy dealing with like hand-me-downs, which, admittedly, with the humor of the film, I think putting Rodney in the dress was kind of dumb. It was just kind of a cheap joke.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we didn't have the budget to really show like that, to spend a lot of time on the hand-me-down. We really have to hammer it in. Okay, these are like things he's stuck with, so it got it from like his female cousin. It's a whole anyway.
Yeah.
Um, Point being, you see that this is a character who was like basically kind of cheated and stolen his way to getting upgrades, and versus like putting the hard work and the elbow grease into it, like Rodney has, and his philosophy is why be you when you can be new. And we see he has a very different relationship. He has a close relationship with his parents, but it's very screwed up. Like he strung up and stripped away all the parts of his poor father and hung him up in the rafters. Versus
Yeah.
Rodney trying to save his father. Madam Gasket, of course.
Yeah.
Uh,
Madam, voiced by Jim Broadbent.
which I got to admit, I completely forgot that Jim Broadbent, because again they pitched him up. I completely forgot. And when you hear like Jim Broadbent, oh my god, I hear it now. He pitched him up, but that's him.
Yeah, I think Jim Broadbent is someone else that I have forgotten a lot that he's in this movie, and because pitching his voice, and I'll have to go back and listen to it because but that was pretty funny because who'd have thought we'd see Jim Broadbent voicing a lady robot, an evil one,
Yeah.
just fun.
So honestly, I always thought Madam Gasket. I assumed blindly Madam Gasket was like a scratch voice. Like, it might have been Chris Wedge possibly pitched up, but I didn't think it was like, oh my god, that's actually Jim Broadbent.
Hmm.
But yeah, so it's the fact that also again Jim Broadbent, of course, Malcolm Santa Claus from Arthur Christmas, and he was the father in The Borrowers, which is a film no one ever talks about, but
And I know him best, and for me, I know him best from Chronicles of Narnia, Indiana
Mhm.
Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and Harry Potter, and
Mhm.
he's done so much more.
Oh yeah. All right, let's see. So again, point being, Ratchet embodies Kinnear voices really well. It's this great smarmy business look, to him. Just again, this guy, Rodney worships Bigwell. This guy usurps Bigwell's power. He's jealous. Again, he's very much like the yuppie businessman of the '80s, or of the '80s movie, more accurately. But yes. Anyway, and also, I mean, just to this too, Rodney's parents believe in him. His mother essentially uses him for power. I get a sense that she basically constructed this kid that basically excel to the top and then kind of help her out.
Hmm.
It's a vibe I get at least. Anyway, so with Madam Gasket again, the chop shop. Just I love the chop shop as like the death to the out modes, and they get recycled into the upgrades. It's a really twisted part of the world building that all the upgrades that people are wearing are essentially the dead bodies of their robot brethren and just spare parts as well. That's really messed up when you think about it. That they're
Hmm.
wearing human remains.
God.
Well, they're wearing bot remains.
Well, yeah, obviously, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I too love that it's kind of like, in a weird way, there's like an underlying message of it's the evils of progress in the effort of wealth, not just the versus improvement. So we have like the progress, in the sense of like it's kind of improvement and just kind of upgrading what you have naturally versus like no, it's just in the effort of, like, we're going to charge people through the nose and in the process, or you're going to kind of like essentially kind of make we're going to essentially kill off people by refusing the basically we're closing down all the hospitals, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yep, but I love to with the last thing with Gasket, before we get into other stuff. I love that overall with her. Just she's a monster of a mother, yet she dotes on him very lovingly. I love the relationship, the messed up relationship with his parents. Were like I snuck in through the air vent. I know you don't like me being seen. She gives him like this little like your best mom like heart shaped picture to put on his desk, which is Just
Yep.
hysterical. I just thought I got to admit, the gag I always loved, always stuck with me from this movie was Ratchet. Again, his mother's kind of loving towards him, and he leaves as like bye, Pop, say goodbye to your father. And he just says, bye, Pop, and says, good luck with your dastardly scheme, son. He gives him like a little like finger gun, like yeah. I don't know. It's just this again. It's wonderfully twisted, showing that again. Ratchet's again. He's not a monster, but he is just kind of like
Yeah.
I guess the modern equivalent. It's kind of like the bad guy. It's kind of like one of our bad guys from Andor, and he goes home to his mother while he's kind of on the outs right now. There's a twisted kind of like a love there. She pushed him to the evil, but
Yeah, that's a good comparison right there.
I don't think that's a good comparison. I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, I don't know. I mean, how you put at it, I'm just saying because like I never thought of it like as an example with what you mentioned of Andor. So
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, let's see. I always loved the magnetized gag of all the robot gags that we had. Like Rodney having like the woolly willy kind of shavings around him and being able to manipulate that. And then and again, I love that the shavings that he's getting are from his old mentor's motto that defined his life, being sanded away.
Mm-hmm.
And we have just kind of a fun, again, like the wonderful John Powell score. Just kind of
Yes.
chasing him and basically like basically bringing him to rock bottom for Act Two. So it's again really great end to Act One. His hopes have been dashed, and we bring him down to like the bottom end of the city versus like Bigwell at the top. Bigwell Industries.
Right. If I remember correctly, after Robots Jump, if I remember correctly, if you remember this too, Dragon, he went on to compose some of the Ice Age movies, right?
I mean, I believe so. I don't remember if he did the first one or not, but he
No,
did at least.
I think because I'm pretty sure he started with say the Meltdown. So.
I know he did Meltdown. I don't know if he did any of the others, but at the very least, he did Meltdown. That much I do know.
Me too. Yeah.
That
And
also he went on to do
and
Iron Man 2, if I think.
yes.
Oh, yeah,
And
that's correct. No, that was John Debney. Forget what I just said. It was John Debney.
I do know that John Powell, and since we mentioned Star Wars, I know that John Powell did the music and score for Solo. And by the way, because another mention on Wonderbot, in case I don't know, because like if you remember or not, Dragon, because Chris Wedge does the voice of Wonderbot.
Yes, he does.
Yeah. By the way, we have not talked about the other gang of robots alongside with Fender. Do we want to bring them up now?
Well, yeah, we're about to bring him up now.
Okay.
Well, go on. Tell him about our cast.
All right. Once again, put me in the spot. Yeah, because the next time, okay, like, long story short, like the next time that Rodney and Fender would come face to face with one another, well, because at one point, Fender trying to steal one of Rodney's feet, and which he kind of succeeds on doing that, but when like they're wrestling Rodney's foot, and there's like a little funny dance that they have, those like tiny balls, and ultimately, yeah, because when Fender, runs into his fellow, I guess you could say,
Outcast, his fellow outmodes. That's what you would call him.
and his adopted siblings, I guess you could say, because one of them refers to Fender as a brother, and that being Piper, and yeah, because most notably Piper being voiced by Amanda Bynes. Piper was a pretty good and funny character, not to mention that she has a bit of a crush on Rodney, I think almost throughout the film, but well, I think as we all know, Rodney doesn't end up with Piper because we know who he ends up with, but until we get there. And we also have Crank being voiced by Drew Carey, which Crank, he's on wheels, and Lug, I think I'm pronouncing that right. Harland Williams, and Harland Williams, he would go on to voice another robot in something else that coincidentally William Joyce would work on, and that being Meet the Robinsons. Harland Williams voiced Carl the robot. So before Meet the Robinsons, actually 2 years before Meet the Robinsons, he voiced one of the robots in Robots, and I don't know, because like Lug kind of almost, I guess, resembles like a garbage truck or something. I don't know. Someone said that on YouTube about.
Well, I think more like kind of a rock'em sock'em robot with green, but
You're right. Yeah, now I can see that almost. Yeah. And their encounter with Rodney, I mean, eventually, because like it's all settled, and yeah, I mean, Dragon, what say you on those batch of robots?
Well, yeah, I like our out modes. I think they're kind of a fun, eclectic bunch. Admittedly, again, a lot of them very much just kind of gag driven. And Lug, yeah, again with the editing of the movie, Lug got probably the least development, which is kind of a shame. But again, you're right. It's kind of a cutesy, kind of like the Bill Joyce connection there. But
Yeah,
I mean, Diesel's pretty much he's a walking gag. The vibe I kind of get from the out modes in a weird way. They kind of remind me of the Gorgonites from Small Soldiers. It's a weird comparison, but it's kind of a
eh,
fun outcast.
that's a good comparison.
Anyway, but of course, with Piper, so Piper is obviously the stand. A lot of people really like Piper because it's a man of mines. But Piper is a fun character. She's got an excellent design, and a lot of people really wish Rodney ended up with her instead of uh, Cappy. And I think the main reason
Mm,
being Cappy got zero development, and Piper got more character.
she did, yeah. Now that I think about it some
Look, I'm
more,
not
yeah,
saying
she did.
Cappy couldn't have worked. I'm not saying Cappy Like I'm not saying Cappy could not have worked. I'm just saying that what we have, and I can't refute that. Yeah, Cappy had
And
zero
not to say
development.
that
That's a
she was
shame.
like in the final film, she was a bad character. Just yeah.
No, no, no. It's just she. Here's the thing. So Cappy, just kind of talking about Cappy. She was introduced
And
earlier, but we have nothing to say about her. Cappy, all of her backstory in the later scene when they're heading to Big Weld, when they're heading to find Big Weld, she was going to exposit her backstory, and we were going to learn that. Essentially, it was kind of like Sally from Cars. The idea she used to be,
hmm,
well, kind of an inverse of Sally, I guess. The idea is that she came from a small town like Rodney, and then she moved up the ladder. That was the idea. Like if you kind of look at her design, I'm filling in the blanks on this part, mind you, but if you look at her design, she probably upgraded herself kind of like Ratchet did, but she probably came from humble beginnings and still kind of maintained that versus Ratchet.
uh-huh.
Now again, all of that is speculatory, unfortunately, but that's essentially that much. All we know, she did have kind of a small town backstory, but that is not in the movie at all.
Right.
Anyway,
And
so the problem with Cappy ultimately feels like a stunt casting thing at the end of the day, where it feels like this is kind of like Holly Berry coming off of X-Men and Monsters Ball. It feels like,
yeah,
hey, Holly Berry, she has to be kind of our lead there to some degree. Now, mind you, with the casting and with the development, Cappy felt like a good idea. Cappy felt like a fun idea they wanted to explore, but as the films went on, and then we have voice talent to factor in, and we have just like cutting things down. Cappy feels kind of like she only serves one plot point in the whole movie.
yes.
Like how is Rodney going to find Big Will? That's the only role she really serves in the movie.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah, but Piper, a lot of fun. She's got some charm there. Again, kind of Amanda Bynes, kind of like post Amanda show, and kind of around the time of Big Fat Liar. There's charm.
Yeah, and that one movie where Amanda Bynes was in where she pretended to be a boy.
Yeah,
If
that's hopefully if I'm saying the right title, it should be She's All That. It's either She's All That or I'm thinking of the other one that's the remake of. I think it's She's All That.
I think so. Yeah.
It's one of those. I know that because there was a remake of that because there was the one where here's the thing. I know there was a remake and then there was and the girl from this is gonna be a weird pull. The '90s Flash, the girl who was in the girl who played
Oh,
God,
Dragon. That like the movie that I'm trying to refer to. Like, and you know which one it is I'm talking about that has Amanda Bynes where she's pretending to be a boy. That
yep,
came out a year. That came out just a year after Robots, and
yeah.
the title is She's the Man.
Right, she's the man. That's
Yeah.
what I yes. So she's the
Yes.
man.
That's right.
That's a remake of the one. God, the girl who was one of the Flash's girlfriends on the '90s Flash. I'm blanking on her name, but she was in the Trickster episode. It was the private detective. It began with an H, like, not Helen, maybe Heather. I don't know. It was.
Yeah.
Feel bad for missing that, but she was good though. I liked her. Anyway, the Amanda Bynes was a remake of the one that she was in, which was something kind of like you know.
Hmm.
Anyway,
Okay.
drifting off focus. Point being, anyway, so this band of misfits, they have a lot of charm, and they basically represent Rodney basically being able to help help bots, in Robot City, and shows us that there are people that are definitely in need. They're going to be needing parts, and not everyone can afford these upgrades, or it's the people that are struggling on the street level.
Hmm.
And Aunt Fanny, of course, amongst the bunch of them. So Jennifer Coolidge playing this
Yes.
sweet doting lady with a gargantuan caboose.
And it's sweet that, because she takes in robots. And in this case, it's the Misfits.
Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah, good old Jennifer Coolidge. I mean, she's good, and she's not a she too is not a disappointment in robots.
no, no.
Yeah. I love the sequence. I think one of my favorites, and up to when Rodney stays at Aunt Fanny's home and where the misfit robots live. Like the scene where pulling the lever in each of their rooms, and most notably when they when we see Piper's room, just you missed the spot. Fender, get out of my room. I'm not in your room. I'm not like that was pretty funny. And then when we see Crank in his room and he's taking a leak, just again, I think that's one of my that's one of my favorite like scenes, and there's more than just that one, but still, that's just one of my favorites.
Right. We also have a nice kind of a quiet scene where we have like the tire bunk beds with Rodney and Fender, and it's just kind of a nice little moment of them kind of bonding. And you know what? I'm going to just
Hmm.
go as far as say, okay, I love that we kind of have. There's a lot of people will automatically either applaud or shut down the fart joke. They will.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just not just I'm just saying in general, like when we do a fart joke in animation, bathroom humor, you have a fart joke, and I feel you can do bathroom humor, or more specifically a fart joke. You can do it well if you try. And I'll admit when we go to Aunt Fanny as the big punchline, I'm a little iffy on. It's okay, but I'm saying like the genuineness of like okay, they're all doing like the arm farts because they're robots, and it's a hard thing for them to do. Like that's kind of charming to me in terms of how you're going to do a fart joke.
Yes. And apparently that whole thing, especially when it comes to Aunt Fanny, that causes an earthquake, and even causing the lamppost outside to die from that. And that was pretty funny.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That like it's kind of a thing where okay, it's a little broad, but I'll find. Here's the thing. I'll accept it because I love the whole chalk out. The chalk outline gag is
Yes.
hysterical.
Yes, the
That's what
chalk house.
saves it to me. That's what That's what like, he actually died.
Yeah, who'd have thought who'd have thought that would kill that lamppost?
Yeah. Regardless, though, but yeah, I still I can see some charm in some. It's a very gag based movie, so some of these gags, for example, then we have like some cute gags, like okay, there's a guy in a little robot car, but it's a wind up car, and it runs out of gas. He's got to get out of the car. He's got to wind it up. That's adorable. It's a Bill Joyce joke. You can tell your mother that joke.
Hmm.
You know. Anyway, let's see. Okay, so anyway, so point being, Act Two, the overall Act Two is like we Rodney sees a need and he fills a need. He sees that with Bigwell gone, the bots need repair, and he's basically the interim Bigwell. He gets to kind of be his hero, and he's a band aid solution to a big problem where that the bots need Bigwell because they've stopped making the spare parts, and Herb, as we hear through the mail. Herb's not doing great. He's without spare parts being made, he's in trouble. And of course, to me, it's like I'm dialed in. Like, okay, we got to save Herb, man. What's Rodney gonna do?
Hmm.
So we're crashing the Big Well Ball, and this is where Robin Williams gets to shine, doing doing a lot of fun improvisations like the flamboyant valet.
Yes.
I still love the caca gag. I love the whole like they come up with like the signal, and later on I love Ewan McGregor. By the way, I think I've undersold how great Ewan because I kept going to Herb Copperbottom. Ewan McGregor, to parrot your point earlier, Eli. Ewan McGregor really, I think it's really hard to play a white hat, to put it in kind of in Western terms. It's very hard to play kind of the straight man or the white hat or what have you, and I think he does it really well because again, this is like him bringing a little bit of that Edward Bloom energy from Big Fish, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and especially since it's hard to what's the term where we know because we know you McGregor is a Scottish guy, and well, and even like his when he's done Obi-Wan Kenobi, and to see him do other roles, even in this case like animation where he's not using like say his regular accent or he's using a British accent, what he brings to the voice performance of Rodney, like I don't know if maybe to some people you wouldn't immediately maybe possibly wouldn't immediately tell that that's Ewan McGregor, but it is, and it's amazing how the accent and what he brings to Rodney. And as you point out, Dragon, yeah, because like the example slash comparison to Big Fish, I would agree on that. But yeah, I'd say that, and you know what? Because yeah, if I'm correct, yeah, Robots is McGregor's first animated film, and I don't think that this being his first animated film, he was no disappointment. He did pretty good. In fact, I think I've completely. I need to go back and look because I think McGregor he did do a couple of other animated films after Robots, but yeah, right now that's the only Robots is the only one I can think of where yeah McGregor is in an animated film. But anyways,
Yeah. Anyway, let's see.
yeah,
So Big World's a no-show, and but I always love the joke of like he sends his love in a box of assorted cookies. There's no reason there would be cookies in the world of the world of robots, but I don't know why. It's just funny.
yeah, it's funny, but and I guess it only seems fair like in some way in the world of robots they got to find something to feast on, and they found a way in the movie.
Yeah, so we also have like some fun stuff at the party, like Wonder Buzz, the bartender, and all that kind of stuff. And anyway, so like I mentioned, so, Cappy gets him out of the jam, and it's a bit of a spark between Rodney and Cappy, but again, all of her backstory got cut, which is a shame. It's kind of a shame that
Yeah,
Fender and Loretta, which is kind of a gag relationship. It's cute, but it's the fact they get more of a love story than Cappy and Rodney do, and that we definitely lead the audience to believe that Rodney and Cappy are kind of getting together, and like Big Welt's calling her like boyfriend and girlfriend. So it just feels kind of weird that Fender and Loretta got all the development. He gets singing in the oil.
yes, that was another pretty funny thing, yeah, because that I'm pretty sure that feels like something maybe if it was like something like Robin Williams probably might have improvised. It feels like it. You would think so. Because most of the time, Robin Williams, he would because he would totally, depending on what it is, like he would. It's just like Genie in Aladdin. He improvised so much, but of course, staying on track with the script and Genie's lines still, So that definitely that whole singing in the all that's probably another one of my favorites, and I'm pretty sure that that does again that feels like something Robin Williams might have improvised, and probably Chris and the others got in on it, and yeah. Uh, and that was, and I will say, like that, like I think the relationship between Loretta, which by the way I completely forgot because Natasha Leone voicing Loretta, and I think the chemistry and relationship between Loretta and Fender is very sweet and such. Even I guess like with how it is like next to say Cappy and Rodney, but yeah. Now, Dragon, I meant to bring this up. Like, keep I feel like I should know about this, but there are deleted scenes of robots, is there not?
Yes, there are.
Okay, yeah, because maybe I've seen them, but it's been a long time since I've seen the deleted scenes. But I will say this: what do you think, Dragon? Do you think it would be nice if but it's doubtful. Like it would be interesting if we saw like maybe somewhat of a director's cut, what was cut out, and especially most notably a lot of the character of Cappy. If you think about it, I'm just saying that'd be interesting.
Yeah, it would be interesting. I mean, they've kind of joked of like, let's do the seriously. Like when the movie came, it was like, oh, it'll be in the director's cut. Like it was like the wishful thinking.
Hmm. If they actually did it, but no.
Yeah,
Because it's very. I was just going to quickly say it's kind of rare to see an animated film have a director's cut. Like best example, The Iron Giant. the signature edition. So, anyways,
Yep.
Go ahead, Dragon.
Okay. Let's see. Well, no, not everything's going to be like the Iron Giant signature edition. Not all movies are going to look at like that one though. That was a bigger deal.
Yeah, of course.
Yep. All right. Let's see. So we meet Big Weld finally, and this is kind of like the cautionary tale about meeting your heroes. And we have like I love the dominoes reveal. I love the fact it's got all these this giant line of dominoes, and it creates like all sorts of really cool stuff. It's like more Rube Goldbergian kind of like Bill Joyce design stuff. It's just the idea that it's in the shape of Big Weld kind of reminds me of like the domino bit from El Dorado a little bit, but just even more awesome. Just so it's a great build up to Big Weld and this Mel Brooks. Again, actually doing some acting here. He's playing kind of like the icon like Mel Brooks is, but he's kind of like he's kind of down on his luck. He's kind of disenfranchised. He's not this way. He's not. I love that he lights up at the idea of invention. He lights up at the idea of invention, but he's disenfranchised.
Yeah.
So it's the fact of like says he sees like okay, there's a little son Rodney. Instead of giving Rodney words of encouragement, he's like, just give up, son. That's my advice. Give up. And essentially, Ratchet has kind of gotten into his head and really kind of again, it's the cautionary tale of of when business overrides the creative side of things and like tells you like you have like boundless creativity and business is saying no, you have to make it more inconvenient for the masses, or you can only design in a box, and it's not going to get you. It's very unfulfilling.
Yep. Yeah, and again, Mel Brooks at his finest right here, and just him just feeling so down, and again because of what Ratchet did, and once again just Rodney's dreams and such, and when he finally meets his hero, and what happens? It's just it's unfortunate and sad at first, and also to mention that, like for me, because like my side on it, yeah, it's pretty funny, and because he seems to like he's Big Weld like has a besides like the like just like on TV with Mr. Big Weld, like he seems to in real life have a big obsession with the dominoes and how many dominoes he's got, including a very big one. Just that's funny. And yeah, because when Rodney and Cappy when they go into his home and when they see all those dominoes and just a big mammoth of like dominoes, just so funny. Good animation right there with the dominoes, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, so
And yes, don't mean to just yes, Teddy. 20 years. It's been 20 years since Robots.
indeed.
On this very day.
So meanwhile, Fender, during his happy-go-lucky song, he was swallowed by a sweeper, which is already kind of a cool design. And I love that we then made it even more menacing with like the giant upgraded version of the sweepers, which now have blades and everything. It's just terrifying. Basically planning kind of like a genocide of of like I'm trying to think of I'm blanking on the term here. Kind of like the robot ghettos, essentially. We're
Robot ghettos.
yeah. Okay, so point being, Fender, with some kind of comedy, he kind of loses his legs, but he gets a new pair of them.
Yep.
So amidst that we then have, to me, I think what might be like one of the scenes of the movie. I don't know. It's just the call between Rodney and Herb at the train station.
Mm-hmm.
This one cuts me deep. This is the way Tucci plays this scene, I think, is the most beautiful moment he has in the whole film, because you can see he's hiding pain for the sake of his son. Like the way he says, "Hey, buddy," and just the fact that he's kind of dying. Really, he's really not doing good, and it's just the fact that he's not dying, but you can tell he's not doing well, but he's putting on a brave face. And the moment he hears his son in distress, he then kind of leans up and shoos the repairman away. Just like son, what's wrong? And it's oh my god, it just it's
Yeah.
it's a beautifully honest scene, and it's the fact that obviously, the actors in a booth. I doubt they're actually in there at the same time. This isn't like how we do it on TV or the animated series or something like that. This is probably like they're not even the same room, but it's the fact that even the way they're recording it, and just the fact that even in the story they're like they're in a phone booth and on a home landline. Just the fact that this is still like you feel they're in the same room here. You feel like there's like even though within the distance, they're in this moment together, and it's like just Rodney again. Like we had this line that's a really casual line. We pay off really nicely at the end where he says. That's Bigwell. He's the best robot. I thought you were the greatest robot, Dad. Well, he's the second greatest, or something like that, or besides me. And we kind of have this moment where Rodney, again, his hero kind of lets him down, but his father doesn't. His father gives him the advice of like, a dream that you don't fight for, you'll never forgive yourself, essentially. And that's what he needs to hear. He needs like you got to make sure you can say to yourself, you fought for it, you gave it your all, and that's kind of what Rodney does here.
Yep.
And yeah, that's like everyone. Admittedly, we kind of rush into Act Three. Okay, Bigwell was really convinced after that one scene, and he shows up. Thank God. But we're off to the races. No complaints here. It's we're burning the midnight oil, and Bigwell he's out of his funk and hitting on Aunt Fanny.
Yep. Should have
Yeah.
seen that one coming.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's a big guy, and he likes a woman with a big. Anyway, so let's talk about how cool the expressway chase is. This I mean, look, this is
Yes.
going to be a really bold comparison, but I
No.
mean, it's in the ballpark of it's nowhere near as it doesn't surpass this. But I love that it's kind of in the vein of like the door chase from Monsters Inc. It's a really cool chase, is what I'm getting at. Just around like the times in which these films are released. I think it's a standout of the film. Just the idea that it's a great setup. Ratchet has knocked out Big Weld on impulse, and he's about to kill him. Rodney steps in. He's riding the dazed and confused Big Weld like a vehicle through the Crosstown Express that we established way back in Act One. It's an awesome sequence.
Mm-hmm.
It's really cool, and that ultimately leads to the chop shop where save Big Weld, and Piper and company. They come back for the butt whooping, and we have Rodney's versions of the upgrades, the affordable upgrades, taking the scrap metal, and he's basically outfitted everyone to be their best selves.
Yeah.
It's just kind of free for all of like at the time, again, doing crowd shots of robots. This was difficult, but they especially for Blues. This is kind of, again in parallel to A Bug's Life. This was kind of their crowds team moment. Where Bug's Life, crowds were a big deal with all the hordes of ants. And
Uh-huh.
yeah, here we have kind of the clanging metal equivalent to that.
And pre Avengers Endgame, I guess you could say.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. And we have a lot of really cool stuff going on here. Particularly, I think Wonderbot, the little tiny robot, kind of a pre-Yoda. I guess maybe it was around the same thing. It was after this, but it was a little bit like kind of the Yoda Count Dooku fight. Kind of, you had like little Wonderbot versus Madame Gasket.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of our Chris Wood showing some Star Wars love there with them battling.
Yep.
And we pay off the dominoes. Admittedly, we have some gags that maybe don't play great. I mean, they're not bad, but there's kind of like the whole Britney Spears, the dated reference. Not bad, but it's just dated as all get out.
Mm-hmm.
When Fender is like suddenly doing like "Hit Me Baby One More Time" or something.
Yeah. And I love the speech that Fender gives like before the battle starts. That was another pretty funny thing from Fender.
Oh yeah. I mean, also Drew Carey. So he had the great like the anti kind of like he gives up mid speech like no, I want to try.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Big Weld saves the day with the dominoes. Well, kind of with the dominoes. Gives Rodney the idea, like to basically tip over all the giant sweepers, the roided out sweepers, and we kind of save the day, and then we have our full circle return. I love the ending of this movie. As you probably, oh man, it's just a big softy about Herb Copperbottom. Well, yes, I am. All right, this is a beautiful ending. Okay, we go full circle. We come back to Rivet Town. You know, uh, you know, uh, he quits. Gunk is kind of like he's inserting himself again. He's being mean. I've had enough of this guy. Like he basically quits his job to see, thinking his son might be in trouble or something. And his son kind of is showing up back in town. He wants to reunite with him, and it's this perfect ending of Rodney is now Bigweld's future successor. They have enough parts to save Herb. He's going to be right as rain, no problems. And he made his father proud. And the line that kind of gets me, surprisingly, is this whole thing of like, thanks for always believing in me, Dad. Like, says I believe since the second you were born. I mean, it hits harder when you realize we saw the construction of this child by his hands. So that kind of means something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that, and then of course we have the whole again like the reintroduction. Dad, this is Bigwell, the greatest robot ever, besides you, of course. Which again, is a fun little callback as well, full
Yes.
circle, kind of like showing us
Absolutely.
two heroes in the same room meeting each other. Anyway, so then we have the thing where we allow Herb to fulfill his dream. We put on a little the musician attachment with the shirt and tie, and he's we then end on the original second to Shrek, the original dance party ending.
Yeah, of course. That started with Toy Story 2. Because,
Well,
well, I
yeah,
mean,
you're right. Yeah, we did have it's not really it's more of a song than is a dance, but
yeah. But I'm just saying, like,
I'm saying it's literally dancing all over. That's what I'm saying. Like Shrek had like full on dancing. Toy Story was a musical number, but
and how Shrek 2 would do the same thing again.
yeah.
More bigger.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, because in that crowd, like, Dragon, did you ever notice the Tin Man?
Well, yeah, and he was there earlier in the Grand Central Station. We set him up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I forgot about I almost
Yeah,
I
they had the gag where like they're looking. I forget if, like where they're going, but essentially he shows up there and they kind of link arms and they do like the off to see the wizard, kind
of Yeah.
of.
It would
I
have
don't have
also
a heart because it's breaking.
Yeah. It would have also been pretty funny if I don't know, because I just now thought of this. Hey, since this is 20th Century Fox, and also if we got the Tin Man in there, it would have been kind of funny if they kind of like snuck in like a little bit of I don't know, like say C-3PO and R2-D2. It could have been possible, but I don't know. Again, if they had the Tin Man, why couldn't they also do a little bit of Star Wars? But yeah, and I again like that dance party and such, and of course, like also like Herb trying to play, is it like a saxophone or something? Event like he finally gets the tune. Like that was pretty funny.
Yeah, because he's a little rusty, which it's a cute joke.
hmm Yeah, and I
But yeah, the
completely.
fusion of jazz and funk, just with it, Rob Williams kind of coming up with that was just really. I don't know if he improvised it or not, but it was really. I don't know. It just felt kind of. It's a cute pun. We end the movie on kind of a cute pun, and then it just. But it also kind of fits. We go from like kind of like fusion of jazz and funk to then James Brown comes in.
hmm And we already talked. Did we or did we not? Because I completely forgot. Did we already cover the villain's defeats in the film?
Oh yeah, you're right. So yeah, we did kind of skip over that real quick. Yeah, so the way we defeat our villains, we have Wonderbot fighting Gasket, and ultimately, Gasket gets flung, she gets immolated, she gets flung into the fire, and Ratchet saves his own skin. In doing so, he ends up kind of like stripped of all his upgrades right next to his father, who's like keeping a chipper attitude. Remember, son, you can shine no matter fully. He's not learning anything from this movie.
Nope. I mean, he sadly never did because he was the villain and just filled with power, running the company.
Well, greed as well, but yeah,
Yeah, agreed. That's the word I was looking for.
yeah.
But yeah, but just overall, yeah, the ending to the movie, like you said, Dragon, is yeah, a great way to end it off. But despite because how a lot of animated films at that time, just even I think even still kind of to this day, I kind of feel like it's kind of died down some. I presume like where they threw in a lot of like dance parties, whatever, in animated films, no matter which one. Just yeah, and robots being one of them. Because Blue Sky even managed to do that again with at that time the fifth and final Ice Age film. They did that too. Good God.
Yeah.
Who'd have thought they'd managed to do that, but they found a way. So.
Oh, yeah. All right, let's see. So I guess see, and we end kind of our dance party. Again, I love me some James Brown, so that was a nice way to kind of in terms of our music choice, have some Blue Man Group kind of sound design going on there. And I think it's fitting. The last one of the movies, we kicked Tim out of the movie. Literally, Wonderbot kicks him out of the movie, so it's kind of celebrating the optimism versus the cynicism. So I don't know, it just felt really it's a very solid ending, very good.
I would think so too. Yeah, I agree. A solid ending.
Oh yeah. Not like that essentially brings us to the end. Is there anything we missed you want to hit on before we start to close out here?
Yeah, because I feel like we pretty much said all we've had to say. I mean, unless there's an other funny moments that maybe unless you can think of, Dragon, that we didn't, if you didn't think of and wanted to mention. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think I've said what I've had to say on some of the funny moments that are my favorites, but yeah, I mean, but also, yeah, again, because it's a shame that, and I don't think I quite realized this until doing this podcast that, yeah, because so much was cut, especially for Halle Berry's character, which is a shame. But I don't know. I mean, watching the movie and thinking about it again right now, because I think it did. I think it's the film itself still turned out pretty fine for what it is, and even though there wasn't that much development for Halle Berry's character and other things that you pointed out, Dragon, still the film didn't turn out to be a disaster or anything. It is what it is, and it may not be the biggest like crowning achievement for Blue Sky, but still. It's a pretty good, enjoyable, hilarious animated film where we have robots and a populated world that's all robots, and each of the characters, their personalities and the moments that they have and the storyline to robots, yeah, just we have our favorite moments in this movie without everybody, and yeah, and John Powell's music and score, Chris Wedge's direction, great voice talents from McGregor, Robin Williams, Amanda Bynes, and Mel Brooks. The list goes on. Just yeah, and like I said, over time, I've come to love and appreciate robots more. Yeah, and it would probably be one of my top favorite Blue Sky films. Just overall, robots. It's definitely an underrated Blue Sky animated gem.
All right, I'm gonna give my final thoughts here, okay? Because I think that's pretty good for you. Final thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I guess to close things out, I got a lot of love for robots. A lot of again, I got a lot of again, I got my own personal stuff I like to infuse with it because I am really genuinely moved by the father-son story, even without factoring in my stuff. Because I always
Yes.
loved Tucci in the movie, and again, it's like kind of a moment. It's kind of a process of discovery over 20 years with that. But again, I just something really charming about this. When I think of Blue Sky and I think of like the highs that they've hit, I mean, I'm always thinking of. I really do think the Peanuts movie. I think is kind of the best they ever struck. And mind you, it's because they took a very beloved property and they stuck by it very well and they brought it to life. And then when I think every time, even beyond alongside Ice Age, again, Ice Age was the one put on the map, so you're always going to have to think about that in the DNA of Blue Sky. But when I think of like
Of
a
course.
film that is all Blue Sky, it just feels like the potential and just kind of like that era of like Blue Sky really just kind of being like a rival with the other companies. It was robots. Robots was like it was potential. It was design. It was like it had a style to it. It was very original. It just felt really. I was always ashamed that robots didn't take off in the public consciousness as much as I kind of wish it did. Because I mean, I really enjoyed it. This is a movie I watched all the time when I got on DVD. I mean, I still got a lot of love for robots looking back. I admit there are faults there. There are flaws. The filmmakers even admit there are flaws with the runtime and, like cutting all cappy stuff. But the gadget nut that I am. I mean, whether it's just I'm blinded by nostalgia or just like I'm moved by the pathos. I just like it, And again, if the animation should just kind of like it transports you, it gives you a good feeling, and that's kind of what this movie is. It's just kind of like it's every positive goal that Blue Sky ever had. It's just kind of like I think it embodies like kind of a lot of the good that Chris Wedge kind of did with in the formation of Blue Sky. I'm rambling, but I don't know. I just kind of liked it. I still like it 20 years later. God help me.
Yep, me too.
All right, so I
Speaking of,
want to thank. Yep.
well, I meant to point this out earlier because now that you say 20 years later, because Teddy also commented 2005 was 20 years ago. That means technically YouTube is 20 years old.
There you go.
That was, the same year robots came. I mean, 2005 not only was a big year for movies in general, but also, that was the year when YouTube was born. Hard to believe. But
Yep.
everybody, that like you said, Dragon, those that showed up for this and the live chat, the comments, Code Geass, LEB, Big Weld, baby. That's what Ellie commented. And yes, Code Geass, we already established that. We didn't see her comment, about she's the man, and Teddy, they're the only ones that showed up. Thanks for showing up for this, guys.
All right, folks. See you next time.
Yep, and happy 20th anniversary to robots.
You can shine no matter what you're made of.
I'm singing in the oil. I'm singing in the oil, just singing in the oil.
All that work and toil,
Yes.
we're
Yes.
just singing in the
Yes.
oil.
Yeah. Tiki, we're done. We're finished. It's over now. End the
Okay.
stream.
Okay. You guys ready?
Yes.
Yeah, Tiki's been backstage, guys.
Okay.
Quick cameo.
All right. So you guys done now?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
it's still,
Okay,
it's still
just making
going.
sure. Okay. All right, guys. Draken, you want to take us out?
We just did.
Yep.
Okay, sorry.
Shine
Okay,
no matter what
see
you're made
y'all
of,
later.
folks. See ya.